Welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. I'm Trish.
And I'm Julie. We are two nurses exploring holistic healing and wellness practices to empower you to be the leader of your own health. Join us as we try out new things, or as we call it, weird shit, and have some fun along the way.
Today, we're going to be interviewing Donna Audia. Donna is head of the integrative care team in a hospital system and also has her own private practice. Today, we're going to be talking about how self-care is really taking radical responsibility.
Today, we have a special guest named Donna Audia. She is a board-certified holistic nurse and integrative care team lead in Baltimore. She develops and implements integrative care plans for patients and their families and provides staff education on aromatherapy and integrative care. Her experience as a critical care nurse and pain service nurse informs her patient-centered approach to care. Donna and Michelle Cohen are co-founders of justBe LLC, which provides community outreach to enrich and empower participants with self-care and self-compassion tools to address the stressors of everyday life. They offer group and individual classes on aromatherapy, guided imagery, and pediatric touch therapy. Welcome, Donna. We are so honored to have you here with us today. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Thank you so much, Julie and Trish, for having me. My story started out, I wasn't really looking to get into integrative. And where I was working at the time, they asked me to take on a task with pain management, which really scared me. And as a critical care nurse, it had been a long time since I had been, quote, scared, because I just didn't know what this entailed. I have a brother and a sister-in-law that I always like to call that they were woo-woo, and they practiced alternative medicine. So I called and I was like, so what book do I read about this woo-woo stuff? They just laughed like you guys did. And they said, integrative is not about what you read and learn. It's about the experiential. And the first way to get into this is you need to experience it. So I was like, okay, well, where do I go? How do I get this? And of course, my brother said to me, your teacher will find you. You don't find your teacher. And I thought, oh, see, it's more of this woo-woo stuff. I put out feelers that I was open to learn things. And I received a phone call from a Reiki teacher. And she invited me to come. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go. I had read a little bit about Reiki. I was open to it, but I wasn't quite sure it was really for me until I went and I did the first class. It just changed something within me in the sense that as a nurse, I always thought it was my fault if my patient didn't do well, or what could I have done? What should I have done? Taking that training let me know that this is way bigger than me. Not that you don't try to do your best, but part of it is that we're on a journey. And I have been one part of this patient's or loved one's journey, but it's not ultimately up to me. It just changed my perspective. And I realized the importance of Donna taking care of Donna, and then everybody else is taken care of. So it's kind of that old adage about if mama's happy, everyone's happy. I took it a step further and took it into my work. Started seeing the change in myself, and not that it makes everything wonderful, because I've had some really tough times personally. But the thing that helped me move through that was the fact that I was practicing self-care. And it's not selfish. It's what you do to make sure that you can care for those around you.
Donna, one thing I think is really interesting, and I'm sure you've heard this as well, is that the word self-care gets thrown around a lot. That and the word work-life balance. But I also think that we've watered down self-care to really being doing anything for yourself, getting a pedicure, taking a bath, and all those things are great. But it leads me to ask, what is your definition of self-care?
So self-care to me is doing the hard work. Believe me, I'm like everybody else. I make sure that I schedule things like a pedicure because I like to have a pedicure and, a leg massage or, foot massage. but it's also taking a look at those things that we have within our own personalities and taking a good look at it in the mirror and saying, I reacted to this, or I had a bad day at work. And instead of just blaming it on my patient assignment or my coworkers or another discipline, it's like, what did I do to contribute to that? And why did I react that way? What's going on inside of me? And that's what I think of with self-care. And what are my spiritual beliefs? Why do I believe that way? And looking at other alternatives, with whether it's physical, mental, emotional, including the spiritual.
Yeah, it really sounds like your definition of self care is about taking a radical responsibility in
Absolutely.
all ways, shapes, and forms. And I think a lot of it, especially when you start talking about spiritual beliefs, or a lot of the beliefs I think a lot of us had, and at least I'll speak for myself, is because this is what we were told, or this is what our family did. And, I think it takes a while for us to start to dig deep and actually have those inner conversations of, but is this what I believe? And why do I believe that? And what else could possibly resonate?
Not only is it what I believe and why do I believe it, but how do I demonstrate it? How do I take that knowledge and empower myself? And I go back to working with patients. We do so much for the patients, especially when they're critically ill, taking care of them, breathing for them, making sure that their blood pressure is within a certain parameter. So if you have that mindset of going down the list and checking things off, it's easy to understand why you too would go down a list and check things off within yourself. It's when you start to question, especially when you hit a bump in the road and you think, look, I'm a really good person, so good things should happen to me. And bad things happen to really good people. So if you just have this, well, this is what I was always taught and never question it, what happens when you hit that bump in the road? How do you get out of bed in the morning? How do you go to work? How do you treat people the way that you want to be treated?
Yeah, I think also it's really easy to think about how or where you want to go to, what goals you have, how you want your life to look. It's very linear. At least for me, I like when things are neat and in boxes and linear. And I can go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Life is a lot messier than that. And I think that the way we're brought up, the way we're educated, the way we're trained is also very linear and in different boxes, so to speak. So it's really hard to put all of that together when things are so much more interrelated than just check boxes. And I think for a type A personality or an overthinker, those check boxes are really appealing.
Absolutely. But what do you do when all of a sudden you're on this nice path and there's a blockage in that road and you've got to take one of these detours and all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, there's no box to check. Like this wasn't part of my plan, whether it's an injury or an illness or something happens to a loved one. And you get thrown this curveball and you've got to figure out, how am I going to adjust? And a lot of people think, well, it's really selfish if I start thinking about myself, and not to beat a dead horse, but it's the adage of when you're in that airplane and you start to lose pressure in the plane, that oxygen mask drops down. You put it on yourself first so that if there's someone else that needs help, you are able to help them. Years ago, I was an EMT, and one of the first things we learned with coming to the scene of an accident is survey the scene. Is it safe for me at this moment? And I don't think we take into consideration some of the bumps in life as let's check this out and make sure that I'm safe going into this. And if I don't have all the equipment, I better get my equipment to handle this.
I really love, Donna, how you're integrating all these things that we've learned in our nursing processes to real life. But what I think is even more interesting is how much of our practice is a lot of it is check boxes in the sense of, a lot of things are protocolized. We do have good processes and procedures, which, especially for difficult situations, we need to have those, right? We need to be robust in our communication and our delivery. But at the same time, it sounds like we're also missing a whole aspect.
Oh, we've forgotten how to connect with our patients. I remember being in nursing school, and I know this is going to date me, but I was taught don't connect because don't make that, because then you've created an emotional bond and it's going to hurt you in the long run. These are patients, you need to treat them. But if you don't, for me personally, if I don't have that connection, you get lost in the label of whatever's going on with the patient. They become a cardiac patient, they become a pulmonary patient, they become a femur fracture. And in that, we disconnect from one another as humans. And when we do that with other people, we also do that within ourselves because we are no longer making that humanistic connection like, wow, this is a really interesting patient. And sometimes the patients are really hard to take care of. And if you can make one little connection, that way the patient knows that you care about them. And that can change, that can be a game changer for everyone.
I love how you basically put if we're not able to connect with others, we're not connecting with ourselves. And I think that really speaks to how not only have we lost establishing relationships in our workplaces, but it's a direct reflection of how many of us have lost a relationship and connection with ourselves.
Absolutely. Always ask patients, what's your passion? And I ask the staff when I do staff teaching, like, what do you love to do that's just you? If you had to sum up what you would do on a day that everything else, all your boxes are checked off, your home is okay, you have a day off from work, and we just were gifting you with a day to yourself, what would you do? And I know a lot of people will say, oh, I'm going to sleep. Okay, well, you're well rested. What is it that you do to fill yourself up? Do you turn music on in your home and just dance? Do you love to sing? Maybe do you get, your paint set out and you paint? Or maybe that's something you wish you had more time to do. Or what is it that you're afraid to try? I've talked about trying to do some watercolors for about a year. I still have the set and the paper. I just haven't gotten.
I find that a really hard question to answer. I think that a lot of people would struggle with giving a quick answer to that, especially as a nurse working full time, as a woman with family responsibilities, even outside of my own house here, with elderly parents and things like that. It's like, what are you talking about? Downtime. I don't know what that is. It's like, oh, I have free time. I'll go clean the bathroom. I struggle with answering that question. Even, in this journey that I've had for myself, I struggle with that. And so, what are some ways that when you come across someone who struggles with answering that question, how do they find that? Do you have any thoughts
So,
around that?
Julie, what did you like to do when you were 5?
I like to climb trees
So there
and
you go.
roller skate.
Think about doing something outside with nature. You may not be, I don't know, you might climb that tree, but maybe you're going outside and you're out there with nature. Or maybe you decide, hey, I do want to take a look at roller skating again. It's those little things. And you may decide, you know what? I am really not into climbing trees, but maybe I just want to go outside and look at the trees or take a drive and see the trees.
Yes. And I have, gone hiking, and I do find that just being out in the woods is something that I do as an adult, always just re-energizes me and calms me. I guess I just didn't think of it in that respect. So that's helpful. Thank you.
It's just, it's things that we're already doing that we can just look at it from a different angle. Most of us brush our teeth every day. So, what about like mindfulness when you're brushing your teeth, where you're just thinking about the fact that, wow, I'm going to do my teeth. So, what does the toothpaste smell like? Maybe you use mouthwash. What does the mouthwash taste like in your mouth? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Some of it, I know I found for a long time, I was buying the same mouthwash and I'm like, I don't even like this flavor. And it's something that simple. Like you're like, oh my gosh. So then buy something different. What does it feel like? My dentist is always like, make sure you floss. I know. So doing all of that and just taking the time to be present is one way, one little step that you can do. And maybe it's cleaning the bathroom that you're like, oh, I've got to do this bathroom again. So you set a timer and you see, okay, today I did the bathroom. I was able to get it down into a certain amount of time. Or I really hate that ring underneath in the toilet. So what can I do to figure out how I can make that better? And then maybe I really like essential oils. So, wow, there's all these, do it yourself, how to make a toilet balm so that you don't have to scrub the toilet as much. There's little things that you can do.
It sounds like it's all about becoming consciously aware of our unconscious habit.
And empowering you to be an active participant in this journey that we call life.
So Donna, that really brings me then to ask you, you have a private practice and you're also working within the constructs of a medical system. How does your work or does your work at all differ in those two different areas?
The biggest difference is, unfortunately or fortunately, I have a captive audience when I'm at work. I'm a consultant service, so the medical system places a consult for me. So a lot of times the patients are unaware that this is offered. So they're unsure versus in my private practice, it's more people have found out about the company justBe and they're interested in bringing something into the community.
You find that when you're approaching patients in the hospital setting, that they really don't understand the goals that you're working towards with them? And is it still feel a little too woo woo for them? Or are you finding people are embracing these holistic therapies more so than in the past?
I would say we are about 40-60, in the sense 40% of the patients are asking for some type of integrative modality. They want to know what else is there for them as patients and families coming from a spiritual. So the staff always says, well, we have chaplains. And they're like, but I'm not a religious person. And then they're like, oh, yeah, we have this team that, really focuses on relaxation because we want them to connect with that spiritual part of their being. So it has definitely shifted in the last 18 years since I started doing this. But I'd still say 60% of the patients have no idea and they're not sure, like, is this a religious thing? You have to do it according to our religious, beliefs, which I don't challenge anyone's religious beliefs. I honor every religious belief that we come across. And a lot of times I've worked with the chaplains within the hospital so that we can make sure that everyone is comfortable. A lot of religions talk about breath work. So we just build on what their belief system is to incorporate it. Honestly, my role is not to change what you believe. But if you're there and you're having a challenging moment, I'm going to support you to kind of look at it from a different perspective in the sense of like, why do you feel this way? and maybe take some time to explore it, not to get you to go a different track, but listen to what's within yourself. I think our body, as Vessel Vanderkalt says, our body keeps the score. So we've had a lot of stuff that happens to us that we don't need, we've never processed. And sometimes being in the hospital brings up all of these emotions and feelings, and we're not even sure what's going on. And maybe taking a look at some of our beliefs to strengthen them, not necessarily to get rid of them, really helps to process. That's part of that self care.
So, Donna, I think it's wonderful that we're expanding the view of healthcare to include these integrated modalities in an actual hospital system. Do you also provide any of these services to the staff?
We do. We started a year-long journey with one of the units at the hospital to take a look at what they could do. For part of it was retention, part of it was the staff feeling frustrated. And we asked them to look at it from the traditional Chinese 5 element viewpoint. And that was their request. We gave them several options, and the one that they chose was the 5 element. So we did a deep dive, and once a month we would meet and go over a different element and what that meant and what that represented in nature. And then how could they incorporate that into their self care? So, for example, last fall, we talked about the element of metal with the thought process of part of metal was releasing what no longer serves you. So that's the fall. And you think about it in nature, the trees release the leaves that they no longer need. So it was 2 sister units. And one unit wanted to release emotions that they had been holding on to over the past year. So they got together, they had a bonfire, everybody put on a strip of paper, something that they wanted, that they were frustrated with, and they released it and let it go. The other unit did not want to do fire because they felt like that was an element that they would work on later. So they did sourdough starter because they did transformation of flour and water into bread. So it's whatever the personality, whatever that, unit or that staff member needs. I like to have like a toolbox, I call it. So not every project in my house do I need a hammer, especially if it's tightening a screw. I like to have a wide assortment of tools that we can use. So whether it is teaching about traditional 5 element Chinese medicine, whether it's working on breath work, whether it's mindful eating and creating, ways of self-care. The staff loves when you say, oh, we're going to throw a Reiki table up and you can lay on the table and receive Reiki, which is a lot of fun, but I'm not teaching them. So in about 2 weeks, they're going to call me back and say, I'm really stressed again. How can you assist me? So I can assist you by teaching you much more than me running around the hospital and just giving and giving, because they're still going to come back for more. And that was part of my self-care journey, learning how much I have to give, not only to the patients and the families, but also the staff.
Do you feel like you've seen the staff on any of these units? Have you seen them transform people as individuals, them as groups, or is this still ongoing and to be determined?
Some of it is to be determined. They started to do, and this was the unit themselves, to do some research. So I'm very excited that they will continue this research. I have received various cards and emails just saying thanks, that this really helped. I can tell you it has really changed the relationship that the integrative care team has with those units, because now they understand, oh, it's not just that woo-woo team that's going into the room. They have knowledge as to what we're going to do. And when I say, oh, so we did some guided imagery and some breath work, they're open to that because they know what it has entailed because they have done the same thing themselves. They're using it at staff meetings and huddles. And if they're having a rough day, they've told us we've used the guided imageries that we've created. It's way more than what I expected.
It sounds like a lot of these skills that you have taught to these teams has really impacted them as practitioners. Would you say that this is an aspect of education that is lacking in today's nursing curriculum?
I can't 100% say that it's lacking. I can tell you that the new nurses and the new grads have heard about self care. It's talked about with them, but I don't see them understanding how to implement it. And I'm not sure if that's because, again, nurses like check boxes and it's hard, just like you said earlier, Julie, when you try to do it on yourself. And as nurses, I always feel like it's so much easier to take care of my patients than it is Donna. So I can talk to you about eating, exercise, compliant with medications, your appointments, scheduling everything. And I can honestly tell you it's something on a daily basis. I have to say, oh yeah, remember you got those meds you got to take this morning, Donna? Again, I'm not blaming the system. I would like to see a little bit more emphasis. And I don't know if it's just within the hospital systems or if it's within the education programs on the importance of connecting with the patient. And again, connecting within ourselves.
Yeah, I'm a person who really leans heavily on routines and habits and creating little habits for myself in the morning, even at work. Like I enjoy having specific things that I know to do each day and even the timing around it, because even when I'm stressed or I'm tired, I just automatically fall back on those habits. And if I develop really good ones, that helps me to continue to be successful despite what's going on in my head or in my heart for the day. But at the same time, I've really tried to put a lot of thought around, okay, what are some small habits, small routines that I can put into my day that are self care? Because when I don't do certain things for myself, I don't people as well, or I people really well at work and then I get home and it all comes out.
No, I completely relate to that because I feel like I can't tell you how many times I would give my all at work and I would come home and I just couldn't do anymore. Like
Mhm.
talking to my husband was too much stimulation. I just needed to shut down completely. So I think a lot of us, I think, kind of struggle with that balance of, well, peopling, I like that term, at work, and then having to continue to do that, in our personal lives.
And I think for me, one of the key, and I'm going to use this term, gift of the pandemic was when, as a healthcare provider, when we first came home, we were taught stop, remove all clothing, shoes, and then go directly to the shower and take a shower. That was a gift for me in the sense that I had this routine that I had to do to keep my family safe. But I also learned that I really like that first 20 minutes to a half an hour of getting home that I did not connect with my family, that I just went and did my come in, strip down, go take a shower, because it was almost like the breather of the stress of working in healthcare during the pandemic. And I found that I need that buffer to shift my brain from I'm at work to now I'm at home.
I would agree with that.
Hmm.
As a Kundalini yoga instructor, one of the big things that we were taught, which is great for your nervous system, as well as the cold shower. And coming home and getting in that cold shower, it just was a great reset for you. And I felt like it was really great because it really changed that period of time between work and home. And you definitely had this way of like, yes, you're washing it away, but you're also completely changing your energy system and your energy pattern and resetting your nervous system all at the same time. So I feel like that alone helped me to be more present.
What are some ways that, or small habits that people can start to just put into their daily routine? Because when you start to really explore holistic therapies and self care, there is so much out there. And so, for someone who's really just exploring or beginning their journey in this realm, what are some small ways that a person can get started?
I would say use your senses, and you can go with the five senses. So, what do you like to listen to? Are you someone who likes silence? And this can be a daily change. Like, not every day do I want to listen to music, or not every day do I want to listen to the same type of music. Some days I just want silence. So, what do you like to touch? In the sense, are you someone who likes to be touched? And that doesn't mean by human, I mean, it can be a pet. Or is it to the extent of the clothing we wear? What do we choose to wear? I remember for many years thinking, oh, you know, I've got 3 shifts in a row. So I got my favorite socks that I'm pulling out and I'm getting ready because they make me feel comfortable, even when I'm on my feet for 12 hours. What do you like to smell? Do you like to cook? Are you somebody who enjoys cooking? So, what herbs do you use? What spices? And that goes along with your sense of taste. So, what do you like to eat? What nourishes your body? Then what do you like to see? Again, are you someone, most of us are very visual. So what is it that you're watching? And maybe take another step. Again, look at what you're, not so comfortable with. Maybe you always like to watch one type of TV show and expand it out, and maybe watch a documentary or listen to a different podcast and start thinking about what you can do. Simple steps like that. And you might find, wow, I really enjoy when I cook to use different herbs. So maybe then you're like, maybe I want to look into aromatherapy. Maybe I want to look into gardening. All of those things are steps that you can take to build your toolbox for caring for yourself.
Wow, Donna, thank you so much. That is really impactful. I feel like it helps people take the pressure off. We started this conversation about self care and how a big aspect of that is taking radical responsibility. But it's nice to know that that radical responsibility can start with just some very simple steps that help us connect with ourselves. And then ultimately, it will help us bring about a better connection with others.
Yeah. Thank you. And again, there's a lot of people who use exercise. That's one of the greatest tools to like release out of our bodies when we're under stress. So some people pound it out on the pavement running. Some people like decide that they're going to tear a part of their house apart and do deep cleaning. Other people ride the bike, but release it physically, dance, take that long walk. But remember that we're not just physical beings. We also have this emotional and the spiritual connection. So look at what you do to feed your spirit. And those are your passions and your life's purpose.
Yeah, I think that's a reminder to slow down and be more present in your daily life. Those are ways that you can start to pull different practices into all of the things that you have to do every day anyway. Like we all have to eat. We we all have to sleep. We all have to take care of our homes and take care of our bills. And I think that if you start to look at any one of those things in a more present mindset, you can make it a more enjoyable experience, a more thoughtful and intentional experience. And so it's not necessarily about sitting down and doing an hour of meditation when you may not have that space, but thinking about more meditative practice like cooking can bring some of those same results to you.
Absolutely. Make it fun. Go back to when you were a little kid, what you like to do. I know that for me, I love to laugh. That's one of my favorite. I love to have the family around and I love just to laugh. I've been blessed with 7 grandchildren, and that is my favorite thing, just to be silly with them. Whether we're reading a book, taking a hike, we went to the ball game and just teaching them all the fun cheers and things to do. It's what fills you up.
And in order to know what fills us up, we need to start developing that connection with ourselves.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Donna. How can people reach out to you and find out more about what you're doing and what you're working on?
We have a website, justBe Self-Care, and you guys can look us up and see what we're up to. And if you have questions, you can reach out. We will be putting up some free ebooks that you can sign up for, and just to present different topics. Carolyn Mays said it the best: take what you want and leave the rest behind. So we always say, think of it as a buffet. You might go and you might try a little bit of this or explore, say, guided imagery. And you're like, you know what? That really doesn't work for me. But hey, I found this thing called yoga breathing techniques, and that really resonated with me. We don't do all of that, but we can be just a jumpstart for you. Use our site, and then if we're doing something in your community, come join us.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Donna, so much for your time and all of your insight. It's been a pleasure knowing you and working with you over the years. And I'm just delighted that we're able to bring you to a lot more people. I think that you and your team could really help people in their own journey.
And we're looking forward to the podcast so that we can stay connected and take care of ourselves. Thank you.
Yes, more weird shit to come.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, subscribe, and share with a friend. Want to learn more about a specific topic? Drop us a line on our website and we can explore it deeper with you.